Chapter 5: The Truth and the Circle Around It by K.G. Scott. 1109 December 1987, Red Deer General Hospital. Kelly was finally waking up from sleep, which was only made possible with the intravenous drip, the muscle relaxants, and the codeine. He had to go take a leak, and for the first time in 6 days, he figured he could make it by himself. It's not easy to move with several assorted injuries, which include swollen abdominal muscles and a bruised spine, but it's better than having the catheter, which has now been removed. If you don't know what a catheter is, please look it up. It's way too painful to explain. Grimacing and groaning in pain, he slowly turned over onto his side while bringing his knees closer to his chest. He tugged on the sheets until he could maintain a grip on the edge of the mattress and pull himself around, sliding his body so that his legs began to hang over the bed. Then he steadied himself with the intravenous pull and allowed his body to slip down until his feet were on the step beside the bed. Luckily, one of the nurses had set the frame of the bed as low as it could go the last time she helped him make the same trip. A gentle step to the floor, and off he goes on the 2 minutes it'll take to make the slow, annoying, and painful 18-foot trip to the toilet. When he was finished, Kelly opened the door to the toilet and began to make his way back to the bed. He heard some footsteps behind him and then watched the shoes of a man and woman walk around on his left side. He was quite hunched over, so the shoes were the only thing he had to go on until he could sit in the bed. His neck muscles were as tight as a drum, so looking up wasn't much of an option. "Kelly? Kelly Gordon?" the lady asked with a quiet tenderness in her voice. Kelly strained and looked up to see who was asking. "Yes, I'm Kelly. I need to get back into bed and then we can talk." "Oh, sure, let me help you, son," the man said as he moved closer to Kelly's left side. "What should I do for you?" "Well, if you're strong enough, could you give me a lift onto the mattress?" "I think the missus and I can pull that off, right, dear?" the man remarked as he motioned to his wife. "Yes, of course," she replied. They helped Kelly get comfortable, brought his tray table around so he could reach it, and the lady poured a glass of cold water for him. "Thank you." Kelly's voice was shaking through his gritting teeth. He took a few seconds to let the sharp pain subside and then looked over to them and asked, "How can I help you?" "I'm George Sullivan, and this is my wife, Rose." An overwhelming look of sadness came over Kelly's face. He looked at each one of them and then began to look up and around the room uncomfortably. "We just wanted to see how you were doing, and we want to let you know Carla is fine," Miss Sullivan said. "She's been sedated for the most part, I think." George takes a deep breath to regain his composure. Then he looks down at the floor and says, "I think it's going to be a while before she's able to recover in any way." He looks into Kelly's eyes and says, "There's really nothing physically wrong with her except the stitches to put her earlobe back on. It's emotional." Rose puts a hand on Kelly's arm. "She was asking to see you. Are you going to be up to it anytime soon?" "Oh, yes, please, if you think it will be okay," Kelly says as the tears began to flow down each cheek. "My condolences to you," sobbing. "About Reggie, I... There wasn't anything you could do, Kelly," George said as he put a hand on Kelly's shoulder. A tiny little knock on the door is followed by a tiny little voice. "Can I come in, please?" Carla says. She's holding her hands together below her chin, with her elbows pressed into her belly. Her shoulders look like they're permanently shrugged. and she's trying to hold herself like a teddy bear. Yes, Kelly says quickly. Oh, sweetie, yes, come with me, Rose says as she rushes over to hold an arm across her little girl's back. Carla has a young look in the first place. Her soft, rounded features, blue eyes, and jet black hair are a perfect mix of her parents' looks. She's a tiny girl for almost any age at 5 feet tall, and that adds to her youthful aura. Add to this her posture, the bandages, and the innocence of her timid expression, and anyone would melt looking at her. Let alone a bright young man who has wanted to ask her out on a date for weeks. Add all of this to going through the experience of 6 days ago, and you have two nervous, frightened, insecure young people. Hi, Kelly whispered through a breath. Her only reply was a quick glance into his eyes and an attempt at a smile she just could not manage. Would you like to sit beside or on a chair? Me? He was beginning to suffer from serious brain to mouth pronunciation problems. So we can talk? Kelly asked her, finally, with an attempted normal voice and with a calm, gentle smile. She started to shake her head no, and then shrugged, and I don't know, with her shoulders instead. Her hands, still clutched together, were now tucked into her tummy. Are you? She takes a deep breath and tries to ask again. Are you going to be? She stops and looks nervously into her mother's eyes and then turns and quickly starts to walk out. As she gets to the door, she stops, looking down at the ground. She turns her head only slightly to the left behind her and whispers with a higher pitched, crying voice, Please be okay. And then shuffles as quickly as she can down the hall, crying. Her mom looks to George, then to Kelly. She squeezes his hand, and before she can say anything, Kelly tells her, It's okay, she needs you. And she leaves. We went to a memorial for Constable Davies this afternoon. It was at the Catholic Church, George explained. I hear there were a lot of people there, Kelly replied. Is there anything we can do for you? George asks as he hands Kelly a Kleenex to wipe the tears and takes one so he too can wipe his own moistened face. Do you have any family close by? This means a lot, just having you stop to introduce yourself. My mom and stepdad live in New Brunswick. My real dad is in Fort St. John, BC, British Columbia. I've talked to them on the phone. They're all going to be here sometime today. They would have come sooner, but the doctors told them to wait. So, so I would be more inclined to get some rest. I actually was only allowed to start having visitors yesterday. Dad is waiting at the airport in Edmonton. When mom and when mom and my other dad get there, they'll all come together. It's funny, but they all get along really well. George tries to act more composed. Well, I hope to meet them if there is a chance. I know this is all very hard. He pauses as he starts to dry the tears running down his face and then speaks through the Kleenex. We are trying so hard to understand. I don't know if we ever will. My son Jimmy is up north working. We tried to call the mobile number a few times, but they've been out of area, so the company has sent a hotshot truck up to get him. Jimmy, he's the one everyone calls Curly, right? Kelly asks. George, yep, that's him. Kelly, I've met him. You mean you've given him a couple speeding and stunting tickets? George says with a slight smile. Yes. They finally have a chance to let go a mild chuckle. Unfortunately, chuckling hurts when you've got Kelly's injuries. We've heard, George replies. Kids never do anything wrong, especially when they drive. They have a bit of a painful chuckle, and then George reaches out to shake Kelly's hand. I should get going now. Let you get some rest so you can visit when your family gets here. Thanks. It's all Kelly can say as he reaches out to accept the gesture. George walks out of the room and down the hall. Francois Lefebvre. Francois Lefebvre, I don't know how to speak French, is sitting in the coffee lounge at the Red Deer detachment. He's been in every day since the shooting on the highway. He's the only witness that can identify Alvarez and Henderson. His 9-year-old daughter Dominique was hit in the chest by stray bullets as they went past the police car and brown Camaro. While he was trying to stop the bleeding, he watched the whole tangled web weave in front of his eyes. The gun sticking out of the limo's window, the flashes out of his barrel as the officer was thrown up into the hood of the cruiser and the wild man with the machine gun was hit. He watched the man in the leather jacket and tie jump out of the big black car and hit the gunman. Then he looked right at me. His French-Canadian accent wasn't as thick-sounding to the English officers after the many conversations of the past days. I pretend not to be watching. I could do nothing more for my Dominique. There was so much blood. My boy was calling to me, Papa, Papa, Papa. What is happening, Papa? We should go quickly now, Papa. Now, even though he's telling the same story over again, his voice crackles and he cries as he speaks. But Dominique, she didn't move or speak. She just laughed straight. She just looked straight ahead. Then another man, he got out of the limousine and put the crazy man in the trunk. There was someone else in the big car that did not get out. Then they all got back and drove away. I heard more shooting. He began to weep more and more shooting as they shot the other police officers. So much death, so much blood and death in every car. He put his head down into crossed arms on the table and cried. (1404) December 16, 1987, home of Wendy Bashwick, Reggie's girlfriend, Red Deer, Alberta, Canada. Wendy had sent some girls over to their friend Jennifer's house earlier in the day. They had been told that Daddy wasn't coming home anymore, and they had the usual questions, but at their age, it was easy to keep them distracted. Several members of Wendy's family were over, along with some close friends. All kinds of people had been calling the house. Reporters wanting comments, women's and church groups offering support and concerned friends. But this phone call is one that no one needs. Some loser going on about the perils of society and how more dealers of sin and death like Reggie should meet their end. The mistake this idiot has made, other than some of the things he has said, is that he's been calling every day. This time when the phone rings, the signal goes through a line tracer recorder manned by Constable Jason Granger. He can't wait to get a bead on this bozo. The guys at the detachment all volunteered to sit on the line when they found out what was going on. You see, anything to do with anyone involved in this whole situation digs deep. Everyone knew who Reggie was, and no one had anything really bad to say about him. They knew why he did the things he did. They also knew he wasn't out trying to sell anything harder than pot. And he didn't sell to anyone except people he knew, and never to kids. In a weird kind of way, cops had some respect for this type, or for his type. They have to try and stop him, but he's not a real big concern. Wendy, hello? Loser, I'm a messenger of he who is our savior. Have you found God, my child? Wendy looks at Jason, rolling her eyes and nodding yes. Why do you keep calling? I'm here to save you and your children from becoming the devil's kind. Today we are becoming. Yesterday you called my kids the demon offspring. What will we be tomorrow, your followers? If that is what you wish, my dear. At the midline point, where there are officers listening on headphones, some of them are already cracking knuckles or checking the grips of their nightsticks. You know, at first you give me the creeps, but now I just feel sorry for you. Jason waves at her and silently mouths, keep him talking if you want to hear us arrest him. He lives 2 blocks from here. Wendy gets a vindictive smile on her face. Look, you son of a bitch. I'd better not know who you are. I can't believe anyone would keep this bullshit up the way you have. You are, I guess, entitled to your opinion. But did you have to keep calling back? You have sinned. Your kind pollutes the world of the good. You will be cleansed. What do you mean cleansed? What kind of freak are you? I know where you live and I know everything about you. I am the messenger of He who is the Savior, and I will claim you. I guess I should tell you I'm recording this conversation, Wendy says, followed by a wink and a big smile at Jason. I will bring love to your soul and the souls of your children to bring you closer to my God. Wendy hears a doorbell in the background from his end. I'm guessing you have company. She looks at one of her friends and then over to Jason, who is on the other side of the room, listening and speaking into his two-way police radio. He gives her a thumbs up, and then the phone hangs up on the other end. I don't suppose I could offer you a beer, eh? Wendy chuckles to Jason as she puts down the phone. Thank you so much, Constable, Wendy's mom says to him. Thanks very much to all of you boys. The loser was arrested and charged with a variety of offenses. Since our justice system is so effective, he was out on bail right away. Jason paid him a personal visit, and so did a few of Wendy's friends. He moved away. A year later, he was arrested and committed to an institution. That Christmas Eve, Wendy and her mom invited Jason over for dinner. His family lived in Ottawa, and he had to do a shift on Christmas and Boxing Day. So they used the excuse that he should be with someone's family. They became very good friends, and a year later, the two young people began dating. Reggie's parents think the world of him, too. 0930, January 23, 1988, Highway 2 West, near Grand Prairie, Alberta, Canada. A Saturday in January 1988, 9:30 in the morning, cold, blowing snow. Kevin is assigned to the highway patrol to help out with a spot check. These are really common on long weekends and holidays, but this weekend is neither. Just a surprise to catch people off guard. He likes it in Grand Prairie. There's way more going on, and he gets to go out with all the units because he's got most of the training. Next weekend, he gets to go to Regina for the first time. He's going to Depot to take the qualification test for the tactical team, the emergency and riot control team. Same thing as SWAT. It's not a for sure, but it almost means they will make him a full member, not just an auxiliary anymore. His day job is going well, and so is the undercover operation. So this and the extra training is like a reward. Hey, kiddage. Come over here and put the vest on the car. I'm going to let you check particulars today. One of the other guys can do traffic. Kiddage is Corporal Bob Riley's nickname for Kevin. He's known Bob since he was in 8th grade, or grade 8. Bob was in opposing basketball coach and Kevin was the captain of his team. They developed a mutual respect for each other following an incident during a tournament. When Kevin showed up for orientation to become an auxiliary, Bob was the head instructor. Once they recognized each other, it was smooth sailing the rest of the way. Bob let Kevin do everything, and the other instructors actually began to show similar respect. Right on, Bob. Thanks, eh? Smith did traffic all through Christmas, too. Do you want me to switch off with him later, to be fair? Kevin said as he took the traffic vest off and picked up one of the mag lights and a ticket board. Sure, if it's not too busy, switch after each break, Bob said. Kevin, okay, I'll tell him. No, you won't. I'll get one of the regs to do that. Yes, sorry, I understand. Hey, Shears, you get to be a big boy today, eh? Constable Frank joked to him while he grabbed him by the shoulders and manhandled him for a few seconds. Watch it, buddy. I'll find a ticklish spot and then I'll have to make you look bad in front of the guys, girls, pedestrians, and other assorted folks, Kevin said with a laugh while he wrestled back with the huge man. Car! Smith hollered out as he did a bit of a silly little dance pretending to be playing hockey. The guys always try to make these shitty assignments as much fun as they can when there's no one else around. And every one of the guys got a kick out of his joke. Sick 'em, sport, Frank giggled as he almost threw Kevin right across the road. By about 1 in the afternoon, the wind had started to pick up, and it was getting a lot colder. The whole highway was glare ice, and both shoulders of the road were lined with about a dozen cars. Kevin was standing beside a Beretta with a young family inside of it, chatting with the dad and checking his insurance, etc. I think. Back about 5 cars was a white RX-7 with a driver who shouldn't be on the road. No license, no insurance, and about 8 too many highballs under the belt. The 1-ton service truck behind the Beretta needed a muffler, so Kevin didn't hear the whirring of the RX-7's rotary engine or the chirp of the rear tires as they caught one of the few patches of dry pavement. In fact, the only person who saw it coming was the drunk, scared driver of the accelerating Mazda, who had decided it was time to get the hell out of there. Thud, whap, wham, smash. Okay, I'll explain my spelling of the sound effects. The thud of the bumper catching the back of Kevin's calves, the whap of his butt hitting the hood, and the wham of his back and shoulders hitting the windshield didn't make much noise. What got everyone's attention was the smash. That's when Kevin's head went through the custom glass roof. After the driver of the car hit the brakes, there was also sort of a splat and maybe even a thump or two. That's when poor Kevin took a ride in the forward direction and landed face first on the frozen pavement. Even if the driver would have kept going, he was soon to be stopped. A quick-thinking trucker at the back of the line on the other side of the road checked behind him and then pulled all the way across the highway to block it off. In fact, the drunk driver probably saved his own life by stopping as fast as he did. 3 of the members approaching the scene had their pistols out and pointed at him. If he wouldn't have stopped, they for sure would have fired. Remember Rodney King? It wasn't that bad, and I won't go into details, but there were no people around with a video camera, and none of the witnesses had a bad word for any of the officers. Kevin had bruised muscles in his calves, bruises on his chest from his knees, hyperextended knees, bruised shoulders, and a concussion. There was some bruising around the spine as well as some road rash and a swollen face. I won't go through the list of injuries the driver of the car had. Bob and the staff sergeant were the first to be allowed into the emergency room to talk to their injured friend. They had the usual quick chat with the doctor and then went with him to check up on the injured officer. I know you're a tough little bastard, Kiddage, but you don't need to beat up cars to prove it. Hi, Bob. Hey, Sarge. Hi, Bob. Hey, Sarge. Kevin quietly spoke as he recognized the voice and opened his eyes. I guess I'm a little mixed up right now. I just took a couple pills and they gave me a shot. Take your time. I don't need a statement from you under these circumstances, anyways, the sergeant said. That guy was pretty cooperative once we reintroduced Constable Frank to him in the interrogation room, Bob said. He wasn't going to give a breath sample at first, but he changed his mind. 0.188 over the limit. No license, no insurance. No wonder he wanted out of there, Kevin commented as he grunted, groaned, and struggled to sit up higher in the bed. Whoa, soldier. I know you want to get comfy, but for now, get someone to help you, the doctor ordered as he set his chart down on the tray table and motioned for the sergeant to help him move the young patient. You have a tough little buddy, fellows. Is he always this stubborn? Usually a little worse than this, if you want to know the truth, Doc. Bob chuckled as he stepped back from the bed, as if he was worried the patient might work up enough energy to take a swing at him. I hear you were a little rough with some of the orderlies, eh, Shears? The staff sergeant asked. Huh? Was all Kevin could say as he squinted through his swollen face to look at his boss. He might not remember much about that for a few days, the doctor broke in. Besides, it's a normal reaction for patients in his condition to try and defend themselves. They are acting only on an instinct. Most of the brain has shut itself off in order to begin healing. Uh-oh. Kevin had a straight face. What do I do this time? This time? The doctor asked surprisingly as he looked at Bob. He's been cracked on the head like this a couple times since he'd been with the force. Bob shrugged his shoulders and tried to give an innocent look. Maybe you should get a hold of his records from the hospital in Fort St. John. Yeah, the doctor said quickly as he nodded his head once. I'll call right now. Dr. Langevin sat in his office about half an hour later. He made the call to hospital in Fort St. John and chatted with a nurse who remembered Kevin vividly. She had told the doctor another quick story about a time when Kevin had been hit with a steel pipe 3 times and didn't knock him out. She warned the doctor to tell his staff to be careful because Kevin woke up like a bear. The doctor laughed and told her they had noticed that. She agreed to send the documents by courier the next day, about a minute after he was off the phone. A nurse came into his office and told him that Kevin was complaining about numbness in his legs and pain in his shoulders and back that had not been there before. Dr. Langevin went down to ICU and checked on his patient again, knowing that in a case like this, an injury could show itself later rather than immediately following trauma. After re-examining the young patient, Dr. Langevin decided to have more x-rays taken of the spinal area. He was worried that with these symptoms, there could be damage to the nerves, bones, or even the spinal cord itself. After careful study, he discovered serious bruising in the deep muscle tissue, compression evidence in several discs, and hairline fractures in several vertebrae. Kevin would need months of special care and rehabilitation. This wasn't good news for the members of the undercover team. He also lost his day job over it, and compensation had to come from a special fund for injured officers. This has been a reading of Chapter 5 from The Truth and the Circle Around It by K.G. Scott, otherwise known as Rage in the Cage on YouTube. Chapter 6 up next, A Killer in the Rain. From Rage in the Cage, The Truth and the Circle Around It.